It's the 16th of June 2023. The journey to visit the Titanic wreckage began. On board, we have 5 passengers that were to dive. Stockton, the founder of OceanGate that created the Titan sub they're all currently in. Hamish, a British businessman and pilot who had previously descended into the Challenger Deep, the deepest point in any ocean. Mr. Titanic is also there, a Titanic expert who had successfully gone down to the Titanic wreck 37 times. Lastly, the father and son duo Shahzada and Suleiman, one of Pakistan's richest families. On the 17th of June, the ship reached the dive site. The operation was scheduled to begin around 4 a.m. However, it finally begins around 8 a.m. There was no onboard location system, so Polar Prince, the support ship, monitored the position of Titan and would send messages providing distances and directions of where they are. Titan was also supposed to be in touch with Polar Prince throughout the duration of the trip. It would send notifications to Polar Prince every 15 minutes, which was successful, but then, at 9:45 a.m., the communication suddenly stops. Suleiman's mother, while recalling this moment, said that the sentence, "We lost comm," will be a sentence she would never ever want to hear in her life again. It wasn't the first time that Titan had lost communication. Stockton previously traveled in it solo, and in that trip the communication was also lost, but Stockton safely made the return. So, the crew of Polar Prince decides to wait and hope that the sub returns back at the scheduled time. The clock strikes 3 p.m. when Titan was scheduled to return, but it doesn't. At 5:40 p.m. the US Coast Guards are informed. The next day the area is filled with search and rescue ships and planes. Officials say that it is a remote area and a tough challenge to conduct a search. Commercial vessels are also asked for help. The search operation is on, but it has to be quick. The Titan only has a total of 96 hours of oxygen, so now it's left with only 70 to 90 hours of oxygen. It is a race against time. The news is getting a lot of media attention. There are several speculations, interviews, and conspiracies people are making. One such is that the Titan may be stuck in the Titanic wreck. Some say that it could have lost its way. But in any case, if the sub was intact and the passengers were alive, there is no way they could escape because the sub is bolted and can only be opened from the outside. So the only way to save them is to find them. The next day, France offers to help in the search mission by deploying a ship equipped with a deep-sea diving vessel. Suddenly, a shocking moment of news came. Some banging or knocking sounds were detected from the ocean. Speculations are that it could be the passengers banging for help. This rescue became a big international mission. Robots like remotely operated vehicles are directed to the area of the sounds, and the data is also sent to the US Navy experts for analysis. 22nd of June arrives. It has been 4 days since the Titan was lost, and by now it's probably crossed the deadline for when the oxygen will run out. In the afternoon, a debris field was found near the wreck of the Titanic, and then comes the news that numbed many people, including Suleiman's sister, who was still hopeful. It's announced that the debris field found contains pieces of the Titan submersible, and no survivors were found. Titan had most likely imploded. Many lives were lost, and many hopes were shattered. Most people at that time didn't even know what an implosion was. It was being confused with an explosion, which is the opposite of it. An explosion is an outburst, while an implosion is collapsing inwards. Pressure underwater increases as you go deeper. Some people experience a sense of heaviness in their noses and ears when they dive at the bottom of the pool. That pressure will not be that significant compared to the depth of where Titanic rests. It is horrific and deadly. Mr. Titanic, when asked about the extreme pressure conditions that exist in the depth where the Titanic rested, he said, "Under that pressure, you'd be dead before you knew there was a problem." He said with a smile. As frightening as it may sound, he unknowingly stated the future. To get a better idea of how deep the Titanic wreck is located underwater, Imagine submerging 4 of the tallest buildings in the world, Burj Khalifa, on top of each other. More than that still is the depth where the Titanic rests. If you were to go down to reach the wreck, at 650 feet, you would pass the twilight zone of the ocean where there is only a small amount of light. At around 1,000 feet, you would reach the depth where the world's deepest scuba dive was ever recorded. Descending down 2,600 feet, you would pass the maximum depth at which giant squids swim. And at around 3,300 feet, you will enter the midnight zone, beyond which sunlight cannot go. At 9,800 feet, you will be at the maximum known depth of the deepest diving mammal. And when you go even deeper, at 12,500 feet, you finally reach the Titanic's wreck. At that depth, 2,500 kilograms would have been pressing down on every inch of Titan's exterior. Under such extreme pressure conditions, even a minute leak leads to an immediate collapse of the submersible. Any defect would have triggered an instant implosion due to the underwater pressure. Within less than 1 second, the submersible would have immediately crumpled in from all sides. People said that passing away within a fraction of a second was better than shivering in the cold knowing that the oxygen will soon run out and dying of suffocation. But do other submersibles also collapse? Well, not really, because other submersibles are not made of carbon fiber, which Titan was built of. Carbon fiber composites can be stronger and lighter than steel, but they can also be prone to sudden failure. Other kinds of failure, such as loss of communication or battery drain, were observed in previous Titan expeditions, because of which those trips had to be cancelled. But this one went beyond control. The US Navy later revealed that it had heard an implosion or explosion sound on the day the Titan lost communication, just hours after it launched. Also, the banging noises that were observed during the search were later described by the US Coast Guard as being apparently unrelated. Recently, the photos of the Titan submersible wreckage came out while it was being transported for analysis. Those pictures were shared over social media, and based on that, many theories have come up. One theory suggests that the carbon fiber hull caused the implosion, while another suggests that the viewport may have been the reason. In the photos, it was seen that the titanium rings that supported the structure of the submersible were intact, while the carbon fiber part was seen to be missing. One thing that looks certain at this point is that something was wrong with Titan way before the mission even took place. It was full of warnings that could have prevented this whole disaster. Stockton and his company OceanGate had many times stated that Titan was built in collaboration with Boeing, NASA, and the University of Washington. It wouldn't be wrong to say that their names were also used as proof that the design and structure of Titan could be trusted. But when the accident happened, both of them denied any involvement in the making or testing of Titan. NASA also distanced itself from the claims. The agency said it only carried out remote consultations with the company which built and deployed Titan, and did not provide any approvals for the project. The day the Titanic hit the iceberg, the ship had received several warnings about the icebergs in the area that it needed to be alert from. The first one came in the morning. Titanic's captain, Captain Smith, posted the message in the room where the ship was commanded from. The next warning came in the afternoon. Captain Smith showed the warning to Joseph Bruce, the chairman of the company that made the Titanic. As the sun set, the temperature lowered to freezing. The sea surface was shining like glass, making it hard to spot icebergs. But Captain Smith kept the ship at full speed. He believed the crew would react in time if any were sighted. By 7:30 p.m., the ship had received 5 warnings from nearby ships. In fact, the wireless operator, Jack Phillips, took down a detailed ship's message pinpointing the location of heavy pack ice and a great number of bergs. He was so burdened with the task that he couldn't focus on such crucial warnings. It seems like none of the warnings were given any attention, and we all know what it resulted in. The Titanic sank, killing more than 1,500 passengers that night. And as it appears, something similar happened with Titan as well. One of the earlier warnings regarding Titan's build came back in 2015 when Stockton visited the marine technology company Dewar seeking lessons from a project. Its president, Liz Taylor, specifically warned him against using carbon fiber. The next warning was from an OceanGate employee himself. David Lockridge, OceanGate Director of Marine Operations, inspected Titan, and he filed a quality control report in 2018 in which he stated that the submersible's carbon fiber hull was not properly tested, which could compromise its strength. Instead of taking action on the report, David was told that such testing was impossible and that OceanGate would rely on real-time acoustic or sound monitoring system. But David felt that the system would not warn the crew within sufficient time and might only provide milliseconds of warning before a catastrophic implosion. A day after filing his report, David was summoned to a meeting with Stockton and other key people. During the meeting, David said that he discovered that the Titan's viewport was certified to a pressure of around 4,200 feet below sea level, whereas OceanGate intended to take the passengers on the Titan down to 13,000 feet. David alleged that the company refused to pay for building a viewport that would meet the required standards for these depths. At the end of the meeting, David said that he would not authorize any tests of the Titan without a scan of the hull, after which he was fired. He revealed all of this in a report when OceanGate filed a lawsuit against him, accusing him of improperly sharing proprietary trade secrets. In the report, he also claimed that the company could subject passengers to potential extreme danger in an experimental submersible. The same year, the Committee of Marine Technology Society wrote a private letter to Stockton expressing concerns over the design of Titan and urging him to have the ship certified. Yes, the Titan was not even a certified submersible. According to Will Connon, the letter came about after many experts voiced concerns over Titan.
As chairman of the Submersible Committee, I stand by the letter and all the sentiments of our members that were worried. There's no joy in saying, boy, we were hoping this wasn't going to happen. We are in a very precarious situation right now, and it's affecting a lot of people.
However, the letter was never sent, and instead, Will had a call with Stockton regarding which Will said he had a frank conversation in which they agreed to disagree. Another warning was by a leading deep-sea exploration specialist, Rob McCallum. Rob wrote to Stockton that he was potentially putting his clients at risk and urged him to stop using the sub until it had been certified by an independent agency. The email he sent in 2018 also read, "In your race to the Titanic, you are mirroring that famous line, 'She is unsinkable.'" Mr. Stockton responded to it saying that he was tired of industry players who tried to use a safety argument to stop innovation. If only he had listened to the warnings, the disaster may have been avoided. A question that arises here is that if in the industry it was doubted that Titan was not so safe for an adventure like this, why was it not known to the passengers? Was OceanGate hiding the truth from them? Well, OceanGate doesn't seem to have hidden the experimental nature of the submersible from the passengers on papers, because about an earlier expedition, the passengers were required to sign a document that clearly stated that the sub was experimental, not certified, and could result in death. But verbally, Stockton said it was safer than crossing the street. He said this to a different father-son duo while inviting them for the trip earlier. However, they did their research and declined the offer. If they'd accepted, it may have been them in the place of Shahzada and Suleiman. How haunting it would be for them to see the pictures after the accident, thinking it could have been them. So then why did those 5 people sign up for such a trip? Did they not read about the dangers? When Shahzada's sister said that they probably did it because they trusted OceanGate, they trusted their decades of safety, they trusted that the company knew what they were doing and that it was a viable adventure. She also said,
"You can't blame people for trusting other people. Because Ocean Quest's owner himself was on there. What we can do is blame the fact that the problems were not highlighted. What we can do is blame the fact that the employee who brought it up, that there were issues with it in 2018, was absolutely not listened to."
Mr. Titanic once joked, "I will say, in the world of the submarine, there was a rule. No carbon fiber." But he was working with Boeing, a big company. But he had gone to the Titanic 37 times, and that is a very big number. He was an expert. He knew that carbon fiber could be dangerous, but he trusted OceanGate and their claims. Unfortunately, Stockton isn't here anymore to answer any of the questions people have. But there is widespread criticism that OceanGate is facing after the disaster and investigations have begun. James Cameron, the director of the blockbuster movie Titanic, reacting to the incident, also criticized Titan's structure and system. He expressed regret for not being more outspoken about these concerns before the accident. He was also struck by the similarity between the submersible's implosion and the events that led to the Titanic disaster.
It's our belief, we understand from inside the community, that they had dropped their ascent weights and they were coming up trying to manage an emergency.
So far, it was believed that the 5 passengers died in circumstances where one second they were excited about their dive and the next second they were gone. Hopefully, the coming months and years may reveal some other facts or theories regarding the disaster, and that many lessons from this will prevent any other accident in the future.